Welcome to the Enchanting Tales of Eldraine, where we start with the Knightly Valor, and of course this is about the knights, and this is a perfect card to begin with, for the first set was all about these knights, and them entering and making each other stronger, being there for each other, but this set isn't about that at all. Even though the realms are still approximately alive, they are not the same. Still, the blue faction still looks at the future, looks at knowledge, that is still the same. The black faction, for example, still looks at persistence, getting things from the graveyard. The green faction is still all about strength, and the red faction is still all about strength, but then a little bit more fairy, I guess. But there are a lot of changes, and we learn about it from the books of Eldraine, and that is what is happening with these. And we see, for one, new sort of creatures. So we have in Primal Figure a few of them. The elk was there already. We have a new bunny, where some of them have a horn on their head, and if they are very aggressive. And we have oofs, and I'm not sure if they have been there before. We have some sheepy as well, which we have only seen in these alternate art cards, but I am very curious where these bees come from and whether their hives are as big as ours on Earth. Then there is one front runner, let's say, which is the Mother Goose, which has its own book, which is really cool. And it's a Hydra as well, a Hydra Goose, which is very new. Then we have this picture, which also shows a lot of new creatures, and then we are off to the real stories. But this one doesn't really show any new ones, except for the oofs again and the bees again, so no new ones from this. But beautiful pieces of art showing our new creatures. We have Garruk, who is a story on his own, of course, but we'll get to that in a bit. We have Wastenot, which also doesn't have flavor, and then soon we get to the flavors, but Wastenot does show a witch who is throwing eyeballs into a cauldron, and then we have the Cauldron's Familiar, which I thought was cute. And this is about the Ice Castle, which is new as well, or well, it has been there on one card, but it is new that we get to see way more from it. And Garruk has his new story. This is not from the alternate art set, which is beautiful for him. Look at these wolves that are next to him. But we see here the veil. We see then Garruk, and I guess the fact that he is cursed by it. And then we have the roses, which play a significant role in this set, which we will learn about a lot later. I think at the end of the books, but it is telling a lot, and I think I can spoil a little bit about that part of the story, because the roses signify a different kind of curse where people are returning to the wilds, and it is taking effect on people, and I feel like Garruk is feeling this curse as well. Now, next up, we have the ones with the flavor, and what is interesting about this is that we see which books these flavors come from. So for one, we have a book that is about telling other witches how to do things. And here we see that they say that oaths are not but empty air, which is very significant, because the Knights of Ardenville were all about oaths, and they could have sworn their loyalty, well, at least to a master, very unendingly, I feel like. But still, the witches say that you should take what measures you must to ensure absolute loyalty. That is loyalty to them, and not to others. Look at how beautifully drawn this is. This is like out of a children's book, I feel. Abigail Larson, or maybe not even children, like at least young adult. Ours is the path of the outcast, of pain given and pain received. So the witches are all about sharing the pain that they gain. But for the strong, it is a path that leads to power untethered from fey riddles. So this is telling us maybe that at first they need to listen to the fey, which is very dangerous, and then later, only later, can they gain their own power. And become untethered from them. Should prying eyes observe the ritual, seize them for the cauldron. The cauldron, of course, not necessarily meaning the cauldron of eternity, which the knights follow, but no, I feel like they mean the cauldron that they have, the witches, and soak the altar with the blood of the witness. These are witches then, I guess, as well, even though it says vampiric rites. I'm guessing. Or this is just an altar and they are statues. Now, we have an old one actually, The Legend of the Gilded Knights, which only has one of these alternate art cards, where we see a knight that is burning away the fractions. But The Legend of the Gilded Knights has been there before. For one, on Stormfist Crusader, where it says, as she reached the pinnacle, lightning flashed and her eyes blazed with newfound power. And more than that, we see that this other Gilded Knight is holding her sword in the air in the same manner. And I feel like this is saying that all of these Gilded Knights use this as a form of a signal towards each other for hope or something like that. And here we see Outflank, which has the Gilded Knights as well, which is just a few people attacking a big monster, but doesn't seem linked to the other ones. We have Grasp of Fate, which is a really cool Flickr card as well, and we have a large video on Flickr cards with Ephemerate. But this one says, this one is from the Beyond the Great Henge book, which is a big book already. But here we see that the witch wrapped her heart in briar vines, hid it away in the ancient keep in the depths of the forest. If none could find it, the prophecy could never come to pass, which should mean that if the heart gets beaten or crushed, she might stop to live, something like that. And it is sort of grasping fate in her own hands, maybe, or like literally that. Then we have more from the Beyond the Great Henge from the alternate art cards, and here we see the High Fae, which you should remember, or at least we'll see. These are some, so you see the normal Fae are really small. The High Fae, they are way larger than humans. The dark forest lit up with 1,000 eyes from all of these Fae, and for the first time Geralt considered that the High Fae must be more than myth. I'm guessing that these eyes are what he sees, or maybe it's the face, but I'm not sure. But Beyond the Great Henge is a huge book with a lot of flavor from the previous set, where, for example, the Crystal Slipper story, which we talked about in the looking up forward to the Eldraine set video. We have the story about Pinocchio, so like the strings that are attached with the creepy art with the lady at the back. And we have the Roving Keep, which has a story from Beyond the Great Henge, where it's talking about how the castle walks, and it's actually true. And Beyond the Great Henge has a part about the Queen's protectors on Loch Twain, which I had to dig for a little bit. Even this one, the Shambling Suit, which you probably haven't seen before, has a little bit of a part from the Beyond the Great Henge. And the Sorcerer's Broom even. So it's a lot of stories which are just about what is happening on Eldraine. We even have this one from the Phyrexia set, where they are telling that the toys are watching you from the closet, which is also creepy. It feels like they are creepy stories, and there are creepy stories from the wilds, or witches, like here. But more books. We have Tales of the Fae, which is learning us a lot more about them. The hunter drew her dagger and found she grasped a flower. She reached for an arrow, but her quiver held only leaves. We see that they have magic, the Fae, and it is closely linked to trees and nature. My kingdom for a feast, quoth the king. A fairy appeared before him and spoke through a wicked grin. As you wish. And so the king got a feast. Because we see the king here, which is cute. But he lost his kingdom. And this is saying that the Fae always keep their promises, that is one. But they also always keep their promises. So be careful what you wish for. Basically. Hatch plans is stealing an egg from a big dragon, which probably the thief hasn't seen. The thief fled with her ill-gotten prize, her mind awhirl with visions of wealth and glory. In her pack, unnoticed, the egg began to stir and crack. Ooh. This is actually an interesting one because this is an enchantment that you have to put into the graveyard from the battlefield to draw 3 cards, which is impressive, but you need a way to sacrifice an enchantment to make this good. So you're hatching the plants, but it's really hard to hatch it actually. I'm not sure how the dragon didn't stop her here. Seems a bit weird. But more about the fairies, because they have more flavor text from the previous sets. For one, it's telling us that they can turn anything from nature into something deadly. And for another, we see that they also talk gloriously about other smart animals, like this fox, where the foxes have returned in this set, which is interesting. But the white, maybe white, fox grinned, how about the bat, dragon? If I win, the skies are mine. So the flutter fox learned to fly from this bat. After he stopped laughing, the dragon agreed. And he lost anyways. And also about this red cap goblin, which is about a deal that was struck and the favor had been done, and so under the cover of the night, the debt, the baby, was paid. Also the story about the pumpkin, which we see in a legend in the new Eldraine set, and I will let you figure out where it is. We have the wolf's quarry from the Tales of the Fae, so this one is a really big one as well, where we see the wolf hunting the pig. The monster was gaining on them twice, that found them. There was only one place left to hide, which is all about them going to all of their homes in the real story. And then we have someone who has found the Tome of the Fae, and now we can see how big the book actually is, and the fact that it is a really magical book. And this is a Ventress Knight who says, an intact volume of Tales of the Fae. The king will be pleased. Next, we learn about the griffins of Eldraine, who are very loyal, which we knew. But here we learn a little bit more. The fact that the griffins should accept the knights, and this would bring them on the path of knighthood in Arderville. So in order to become a knight, you might have to be accepted by a griffin who will see your heart or something like that. We have more griffins. We have the garrison griffin from before, which is just saying that they are keen-eyed guardians, which is not saying a lot. But in the new set we also got this one, who stayed by her master's side, leaving only to hunt, while her master is cursed with the sleep, so she can't even touch him, but she will stay as close as she can, seemingly. It's cute. We have the intangible virtue, which is all about strengthening your tokens, and here we see 2 people that we will see in a later card, but it seems like these are Kenrith and Queen. I forget, but she has this this circle around her, which is why I think to know her, but I am not exactly sure yet. It says, find glory not in blood nor dragons felt, but in kindness given, oaths upheld, which is a very nice rhyme. And here we see them again, and now I sort of doubt, because it seems like these should be the same people they are referencing, but they don't really look like them, and they do look like the Genriths, I guess. Oh my love, what would that you could understand. Adventure beckons, I must take its hand. There they go. Away. We have karmic justice, which is about revenge, which is basically it. It says something about the folly of Sir Perrin, who hasn't been named in anywhere else, and we are yet to learn what that folly is. And then we have the Goose Mother and Other Tales, which is a new book. It says that the town was blocking the view of a witch and the giant is rolling it up, which is land tax, which is funny because they should pay their literal land. We have the Smothering Tide, which is about the same. They laughed with glee as the pixie spun gold from straw. They smiled and shrugged when their curtains and clothes were next on the wheel. Then he grabbed their hair. They weren't laughing anymore, but they needed to keep paying. And we have the repercussion of punching stone very hard, which is it. Then we have the nature's will, which is about the troll that is being got, sort of. The troll took the fawn's hesitation as fear and roared in triumph while he was cracking stones. And sure to fall. Then the other ley lines, so the green and the red one didn't have words, but the other ley lines have the words from the nameless night of summer. An enchanted glade revealed itself, offering safety in its warm embrace. Still, she walked on. A glowing spring appeared before her, promising untold wisdom. Still, she walked on. Malevolent lights pulsed around her, whispering of riches in the dark. And still she walked on. And it would have been really cool if the red and the green ones had their own flavor text, but they don't. We do have Ground Seal, which is green, I guess. They laid her to rest in the wilds, in a sacred place beyond the reach of nightmares or machines, which is a very sad ending to this story that was never really finished. We have the new story of the last stand of the realm, which is about the Phyrexians invading them, and here we see, I think, the Phyrexian world with their castles, or this might be Locthwain already, which it says in the flavor. While the realm's great minds quarreled over the strange eclipse, Locthwain fell to the invaders, but this person doesn't seem to be from Locthwain. Really. We have the Spreading Seas, which is about the fact that the water around Castle Ventress was spreading. And we have the Aggravated Assault, which is about the Knights of Embereth, who fought with the fire of the Ironcrag, which is their artifact, in their hearts. Though many fell, not a single one retreated. They all pushed on. And so we have 3 of the realms here. And then a dwarf, Torbran, who struck the invading phalanx like a bolt from the heavens. Sort of showing us why he is boosting the red damage. So he is a lightning bolt connoisseur, so to say. And then we have after the war, which says there would be time later to mourn the lost, to weep for their fallen homes and lost treasures. But for now they breathed in the untainted air and allowed themselves to hope again. So they did. But after hope came, then came another problem, because Eldraine had been protected by the blessed sleep, but then later that blessed sleep became the wicked slumber. The king ordered those lost in sleep to be placed in glass caskets, which was a theme in the last one, the glass casket, protected and watched in case they might one day wake. There is the other side, which is the curse itself. It was the cruelest of ironies, the realm in desperate need of rest, gripped by endless sleep that offered no comfort. There we see Ardenvale being gripped by these thorns. Now, we have some people from that have been hit. So for one, we have those glass caskets. And it says, while Neva's mind wandered the realm of dreams, her body lay protected as mages worked frantically to find a cure for the wicked slumber. Here she lies peacefully, but here she doesn't really. She is stalked by nightmares as you see them wisping around her. And she says, when she enters the battlefield, you return a creature or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. Sort of maybe returning the nightmares behind Neva. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, so whenever you stop a curse, she grows in strength again. So maybe she is learning to fight the nightmares, is sort of what I am taking from this one. Oh, we see a claw from one of the nightmares here as well. She doesn't even seem to see it. She intrigues me, but she isn't that strong yet, but she might be. And then we have Obera, who is a high fae princess, so she should be really tall, I guess, but this one doesn't seem to be one of the tall fae. Obera sleepwalks through the wilds hunting for worthy opponents, which is telling us that she is really strong, and even in the grip of the wicked slumber, the High Fae is a blade master of unrivaled skill. Plus, you can't touch her, otherwise you will sleep yourself. And then we have the Fae who are spoiling sleep. And we learn a little bit about the tree folk, I feel. What they look like at least, and maybe they have a sort of light or fire in them. And we learn about one of Ashok's nightmares, which is an amalgamation of all the nightmares of the children. We learn more about the witches as well. So this is one of them, Hilda, who says I don't need anyone else, she just needs her own reflection. But Hilda isn't just a cold person. Here we see her holding the crown, which says, with each day she wore it, her icy kingdom spread and her heart grew ever colder. Here she doesn't seem to wear the crown anymore. So maybe sometimes, in finding herself, maybe loving herself, she's learning to love others. And here we see it as well, where Hilda watched Ruby drag Callan's unconscious form through the cold, and she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: compassion. So she has changed the Ice Queen. Maybe that is why she dropped her crown. But otherwise she killed a lot of merfolk by freezing their lake. And she brought a lot of elk towards her realm. And here we see her castle in the background. We have more merfolk though that have survived in the same lake. Valtry, who gasped when she found a human, which are called dry walkers by these merfolk. But how did it get to the bottom of Loch Lorant? So it doesn't happen often that these dry walkers come there. And she says, despite her father's warnings, that she still became fascinated with the surface. So she collected things from there, even books. Which, how does a book survive? It's still a mystery. We have Fraying Sanity, which is from A Traveler's Trials, which has a few cards. I saw my mind stretched like cloth on a loom, warping, twisting toward a deathless doom, which is a rhyme. A beautiful card as well, as we see this conceptual going into the deep dark woods of losing your mind. And we have Hardened Skills. Before me writhed the guardian of my prize, a serpent with stone skin and cunning eyes. Which I think I remember with the stone skin, but I think it was from Kamigawa. And then we have Kindred Discovery, which is about a quickling, which I think maybe might be a shapeshifter. The towers were like a song on the night breeze, and these are the towers of Lady Hilda, faint and lovely, calling her home. So there's more people who are coming to these icy castles. And then we have the Lord Talion, who is the kindly lord, the greatest of the High Fae, sovereign of the court, the leech of laughter, finder of the first yew, the dead tree, and the one true Lord of Eldraine. So now we see that they are fighting back, basically. And Talion seems to be very strong from the fact that he is on an omniscience. He might know everything. Or they. I think we have a lot of names for Talion. But a lot of other Fae are still mocking them because they don't like leadership. And the High Fae are capable of magics that would make even the great Gadwick, the blue sorcerer himself, seem like little more than a clumsy apprentice. But they definitely would win it from the humans. And we learn a little bit about the Townville, or Tuneville, which is to ignore the flower's heady scents, to take no thing, to stay to the trail, lest the Fae seek recompense, who do sleep in the flowers, by the way. And in To Walk the Wilds, which is seemingly a guide, we learn that should you hear witch walkers howl, best to hide or run away. They hunt witches foul, and foul fear both predator and prey. So if you hear them, you should run away from the wolves or from the witches. And it doesn't really matter from which you are really running. In Gravepact, we see that we are following a witch and getting hexed along the way. Fools, sneered the witch, I never intended to leave her alive, and so they exploded all of them. And an oversold cemetery, which is about one that is a little bit too full. Get out, the dead screamed. We've no room for one more. Get out, they say to the other dead person, who then had to get out and roam. As a zombie, I'm guessing. And then the sanguine bond, which says, the witch smiled, savoring every stolen year, every love the night would never court, every meal he'd never taste, every honor he'd never win. Was sweet as honey on her tongue, as she probably ate him. And here we see a little bit of the theme of the rose thorns as well, which are about death and taking, gaining. We have spider food, where we learn that the Fae are food for the spiders, which are pets to the witches again of Dunbarrow. And then we have a cursed courtier, who has turned into a frog. It was the first and last time anyone attempted to levy tax on the witches of Dunbarrow. So they will not necessarily shoot the messenger, but they will do something. We have oppression, which is interesting because we see two main characters here, which are Totentons on the right actually here, and we have Lord Skidder, who is here on the left. And the thing I find very cute about this is the fact that Lord Skidder has actually at first given Totentons the blessing, but now it seems he is oppressed by the same guy. But I'm not sure. The human world will fall, whispered the monster's rat. You have but one choice to make. Will you fall with it? And Totentan said no. I won't. Stab wound is stabbing a donut, which is a little bit double. But we see Greta, I think, here. Maybe in new clothes, but I'm not sure. Maybe this is someone else who is fighting the sweets there. But Greta is the scourge of the sweet tooths, and she is killing all the tasty sweets. Not sure what they did to her, but I think she might kill the cookies. We see a glazed apple here in the back. And here we have Welcome to Sweet Tooth, which is the name of the book, which says you create a human who is now welcomed in Sweet Tooth following the sweets. You create a food, which is about the sweets. Then you strengthen a creature where X is 1 plus the number of foods you control. So when you get this to Sweet Tooth, you will only be strengthened by the sweets, but only if you survive. So you will have to fight, I feel. You will have to fight things like these. Which, good luck. Then we have the Blood Moon, which I think is coming over Embereth, but I'm not sure. It says the worm's dread eye upon the land was turned, and all its people bent the knee or burned, which is a beautiful rhyme. With reckless courage, Cade, I think we don't know, embraced the flame, the dragon flame. He vowed they wouldn't dare forget his name. But then also, when a redcap raid threatened the Grand Ball at Delverhoe, which you should remember the Grand Ball at Delverhoe, Godric had no choice but to reveal his true identity and douse the invaders in dragonfire. So now we learn that he is a dragon. Now also this person is returning in one of the card's arts as well. This one. But Godric is one that does return in this presentation as well, which is Godric, the 3 mana 3/3 with haste, which is already pretty good. But Godric is a dragon. We sort of learned that here, but we really learned it from the card where it says as long as 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield on this turn, Godric, I read that too fast, but Godric becomes a dragon with base power 4/4, which is basic dragon language, and fire breathing, which is for 1 red mana, he gains power. So he is a dragon, but he can turn into one. We haven't really seen that, but there are more people who can do this, like Kate. So this is common, actually. Then we have more about Delverhoe, which is attacked by goblins, as you can see here, for slaying dozens of redcaps using only fruit and cakes. The dwarven survivors were dubbed the Gluttoneers, and these Gluttoneers are seen as well, by example, the one with the double cakes, with the double strike. But here we see them again, shared animosity, which is about the dwarves fighting the redcaps. The feud between dwarves and redcaps had raged for so long that no one could quite recall how it started. Few would believe it was sparked by a long ago dispute over a spoon, where the goblins are angry about it because they like silverware, and the dwarves are angry about it because they are angry about everything and they are dwarves. But here we see that one of the dwarves was entering Delverho and the feast that couldn't be passed by Maurice, which is the name of this dwarf. We have the Apprentice's Folly, which is a story about one certain apprentice who kept making elementals to cancel each other out. And this apprentice is Johan, who kept making water and fire elementals to cancel each other out. Here we see him saying, okay, first I'll calm the elementals, then I'll put out the fire. Then I'll unfloat the basement, then I'll do the chores myself. I think he tried to make elementals to do the chores for him. So we see him starting here with just staying here for 1 second and then it exploded. But here we see what happened. Johan's conjecture about draconic fire dispelling rainwater elementals proved to be correct. Now he just needed a way to dispel draconic fire, and this continued until he made this. Now he is a quick study. At first Johan was annoyed that the library had decided to reorganize itself, but he had to admit that storing the good books in the cauldron made a certain amount of sense. So he did learn from his mistakes, but not the right lesson. Okay, we have one from the bestiary, which is the only one, which is a little bit of a shame, but we learned that the redcaps lack strategy, which we knew. Then we have something new, which is the Daughters of Flame, which we have only one of as well. But it says, I give my heart to the mountain. So I feel like these ladies are very attuned to the mountains. My memories to the wind, let my last moment be burned into history. We have Sneak Attack, which is the only one from the Ogre's Revenge, where we see Korlek carefully prepared to try the new a bush strategy he'd heard about. And apparently it worked, because the knights walked past him, which is cute. And now we have the last story, which is the Defense of the Heart, where we see a rose, which is a theme, a big theme for the elves. And at first, in the Throne of Eldraine, we learned that the roses meant death for the humans, but now we learn what it means for the elves. Because here it says, and as the rose began to bloom, the curse of Redtooth Keep began at last to wither. So that there is a curse about Redtooth Keep, and this is a new place for us. We also learned brave Sir Armand mused, was the elf's true nature that of days civility or night's savagery? And it is actually both, but it is changing every time. And at first these elves were kings and queens of nobility, but now they seem to be wild. Could such bestial rage be bestowed by curse alone? And yes, it does seem to be curse alone, because before the elves were just like the humans, and they had the 5 realms, they had the same artifacts, actually they made them, it seems like. It's just a different realm, and we are still to learn about it really. But now we learn that they are only wild right now because of a curse of the werefox. The curse of the werefox is where they are enchanted to become werefoxes at night. So that is where the foxes come from. But it is soon to change, because here it is attacking the guy, but they became lovers for some reason. We don't see the loving, but they did become lovers. And we see a little bit more about it. Each night, the elves of Redtooth Keep transform into feral monsters beasts. That's actually all that we know from these cards. But we do know that one of the elves fell in love with this exact night, and there's one more card about it, which we will explore later, I feel like. Yeah, we will. But it is, I feel like, a cute story, and one that will change Eldraine forever. So it will become more and more important. But for now we have a few furry cards, and you should enjoy that. And also for now, I want to thank you for watching.